Eyewitness News 5's Kevin Sims is in Meeker live tonight. Kevin, where exactly does this investigation stand right now?
Well, right now, Tyler, it is still very much an investigation, and they remain tight-lipped about the circumstances. You know, I just talked with some of the family members of 2.5-year-old Kelsey Briggs. They are understandably upset. Meanwhile, as you mentioned, this is still very much an investigation into how this little girl died. We do know that investigators have ruled the death at this house a homicide. They say 2.5-year-old Kelsey Briggs died from blunt force trauma to her stomach. But that came only after an autopsy, because when paramedics got to Kelsey's home, she was still alive, but died not long after going to the hospital. Now, investigators are talking to those who saw her last.
I know that medical help was summoned, and that when ambulance got there, they did try to revive her. We're talking to anyone who may have had contact with the child within the past 24 hours.
And as I mentioned, we just talked with some family members about 20 minutes ago there at the house, including her aunt. At this point, they declined an on-camera interview, declined to talk with us. They're pretty upset, understandably. They said they might talk with us once this investigation is complete. We're live in Meeker. Kevin Sims, Eyewitness News 5.
Now, Kevin, we know it's been ruled a homicide. Any arrests as a result yet in this case?
Not at this point, Tyler. In fact, just about less than 5 minutes ago, I got off the phone with a spokesperson for OSBI and asked her that question, and she said, no, there has not been an arrest. They are still talking with a lot of eyewitnesses, a lot of folks in this case. Tyler?
Kevin, I know you'll stay on this case. Thank you. Again, here's what we know right now. Investigators are calling the toddler's death a homicide. They say she was hit especially hard in her abdominal area. The investigation is underway right now, and we'll be in Meeker bringing you any new details tonight at 10.
Well, Jessica, this was a tiny little girl in a tiny town, and tonight still a lot of questions surrounding, of course, not only her death, but her last few days of life. Somehow it just seems the main street through Meeker is in mourning, calm and quiet, days after 2-year-old Kelsey Briggs died.
Really petite and sweet, just a sweet face and sweet little girl.
Kelly Sanders' daughter shared a few gymnastics classes with Kelsey. While she didn't know the family well, the little girl's love of life stood out.
A lot of times the kids are hesitant to go on out into class, and she was not a bit.
Investigators say that energetic life ended at this house, that by the time ambulances rushed Kelsey away, she was already dead. Days later, an autopsy reveals she died from blunt force trauma to her stomach.
It could mean a kicking in the stomach region. It could mean someone punched her.
Investigators are talking to anybody who saw Kelsey her last day alive. Her time in this tiny town was short, but folks here won't soon forget.
My heart goes out to the family. They have a lot of thoughts and prayers going out to them.
Now, the man you saw in the picture there with Kelsey is her father, Lance. We understand he was overseas serving in the military at the time of her death earlier this week. He obviously has since come back home. Kelsey, meanwhile, was living with her mother and stepfather at the time. We talked with them earlier. They did not want to go on camera with us. We're live in Meeker. Kevin Sims, Eyewitness News 5. Jess?
Kevin, do investigators have any leads in this case tonight?
Leads, probably not, Jessica. They have not made any arrests, but we do understand that they are talking with several people. Also want to mention, we called the Department of Human Services earlier today to see if they have ever been contacted about Kelsey Briggs. They tell us they cannot comment on a case until some charges are filed, but late this evening we did talk to some other family members, and they tell us that DHS had been contacted over the past few months about some suspicions of abuse. Jessica?
All right, Kevin, and the family tells us they have not made any funeral arrangements at this time.
Tim is there live now. And Tim, I understand you spent the day talking with investigators on this case.
We've been talking with them throughout the day, Tyler. Right now, they say they are looking at everyone and everything involved with this case, although they say they can't get any more specific right now. Meanwhile, family and friends close to the case have revealed their own evidence.
Terry Sigmund has a stack of files, all pleading for help.
I was very concerned about Kelsey, and that if they didn't do something or find out if it was, rule out that it was medical or whatever, that Kelsey wasn't going to be here in a couple of months. And that was in August. And it's been a couple of months and she's not here.
She thinks Kelsey Briggs was abused, documenting various injuries, including bruises on the 2-year-old's face, a broken nose, broken collarbone, and 2 broken legs she says were not normal childhood injuries.
They were spiral breaks, and when we asked what a spiral break was, they said he basically just held his hands up and said it's like this. Somebody has done this.
She doesn't know who caused the injuries, but has suspicions.
The abuse did not start till January. And that's when her stepfather came into her life. I'm not saying he did it, but somebody hurt her.
He's a great dad, huh?
Wendell Kelly is friends with Kelsey's stepdad, Mike Porter. He says Porter is being treated unfairly.
But Mike Porter himself? No. Nope. Not the Mike Porter that we know. Nope. And we know him. I know him better than anybody. Anybody.
Investigators do tell us that Mike Porter is the one who called 911. We were also told that Kelsey's mom was not home at the time that 911 call was made, although it's unclear when she left the house. Meanwhile, investigators did continue their interviews.
This is how little Kelsey Briggs looked when she was happy, full of smiles, a joy to be around. But early this year, the smiles began to fade.
We watched her go from a laughing, mischievous, dancing, singing little child to a very withdrawn, very timid. Her eyes were dull. She would look at us like, "Can't you help me?"
Her step-grandmother says the injury started showing up in January when Kelsey's biological father picked her up for visitation. That's when he first noticed something was wrong.
When he brought her in, she had a brace on her little, and I asked what happened, and he said that he had been told by the mother that she had fallen out of the bed and broken her collarbone.
These pictures, taken as late as August, show Kelsey with a blood-red eye. On the left cheek of her face, black bruises. There are bruises on her forehead and nose, and more bruises on one of her arms. This picture shows Kelsey in cast after suffering 2 broken legs. Kelsey was in her stepfather's care, Michael Lee Porter, shortly before dying. He's the one who called 911. We went to their house in Meeker. Several people were home, but no one would talk to us. The step-grandmother says she tried calling police, lawmakers, and DHS workers, but doesn't feel like enough was done to help Kelsey.
I want to see children protected like they need to be protected. I've always been told DHS's best interest was for the child, and I do not believe that. I do not believe that at all.
The Lincoln County District Attorney's Office and OSBI are investigating.
The spark in these baby blues was blown out, along with the 2 candles on Kelsey's birthday cake.
We watched her go from a laughing, mischievous, dancing, singing little child to a very withdrawn, very timid. Her eyes were dull. She would look at us like, "Can't you help me?"
The black and blue was just too much.
Just different times she was brought back with different kinds of bruising.
Days after Kelsey stood smiling, she could no longer walk on her own.
Somebody was hurting Kelsey.
A few months back, we got an email that describes a DA custody battle and months of abuse dating back to January. It says after the bruises started, Grandma on Dad's side got custody of Kelsey. Mom still had visits.
If we can't identify who has harmed a child, then we need to take precautions and not place them in a home where there is a possibility that that is the home where the incident occurred, regardless of who the perpetrator was.
But the bruises continued. She was treated for a broken collarbone and 2 broken legs. In June, a judge ruled to give Kelsey back to Mom.
That's their role. They have the authority to do that. And our recommendation certainly isn't the only evidence that they take into consideration.
Making those who suspected abuse cry for help even louder.
I told her then, "You've got to do something, because if you don't, this baby's not going to be here in a month." That was in August. It's a couple of months, and where's Kelsey? I'm mad.
Mad because the pictures changed, wondering why the black was added to the blue.
My granddaughter is dead, and it could have been prevented.